Kevin, yesterday Andrew said he expects Chubb to test the free agent market. Can you envision being a coach without Chubb on your team?
It goes back to this is the business of football, Tony. I think you guys know how I feel about Nick, so we'll let this thing play out.
Kevin, are you guys going back to the Greenbrier this year?
We are not going back to Greenbrier.
And then any joint practices this?
I have some that I'll be able to announce in the next couple weeks, but just not yet.
Kevin, what about Joel Bitonio still trying to decide what he wants to do?
Yeah.
Do you know what he's going to do yet, and does that impact your plans this summer?
Yeah, I want to give him his space when he's comfortable sharing with everybody, but he's certainly a big part of what we've done to date. He's very important for me with our football team, so I think the world of Joel.
Have you tried to talk him into coming back?
I'm really giving him his space. We've talked a lot, mostly about the golf simulator there at Berea, but giving him his space.
Kevin, are you concerned about your offensive line depth, considering not just the questions about Joel's future, but also DeJuan coming off the knee surgery, just some of the injury history also?
I just think that's where we are. It's February. There's obviously it's player acquisition season, so there's things to be done in the spring when it comes to free agency, the draft, those type of things. But I like the guys we have. I really think we have talented veterans. We got some talented young guys as well.
I saw Tommy Reese in the hall, so I know he's here.
Yeah.
Is he involved in the interviews with
Yes.
the quarterbacks?
Yes, he is. He's involved in all the offensive players.
What do you
Kevin,
need to know about a quarterback to make that selection at 2? Like, there's a lot of talk about the strength of this QB class. Like, should a guy be taken at 2? Should he be where he would have ranked last year? Like, what is it that? Like,
Yeah, I don't worry about that, Daniel. I think you're trying to figure out is there a fit for your football team, and that's why, like we talked about just now. I mean, this is a process. It's one thing to watch the tape, and then you got to get to know them, then you got to make phone calls on them, then you got to get to their pro day. There's so much that goes into this evaluation, and we're in the middle of it. We're not there yet.
But just a quick follow up. Like quarterback is the most important position in the game. Like at 2, or just taking a guy that high is the final question. Like, he's a franchise quarterback. He can be a top 10 quarterback. Like, how do you kind of parse that when you're
not in those words. Obviously, if you're taking a guy there, you believe in him to be a guy that can be your franchise quarterback, quote unquote. But we're just looking for a good player that fits us.
Kevin, to go back to the fit talent question, because Andrew talked about that a little bit yesterday too with quarterbacks. Like, do you find teams and offenses are more adaptable than maybe people on the outside would suspect? Because like Andrew talked about, the Ravens going from Flacco to Lamar.
I think you have to be. I think you're forced to, and I think it's the right thing to do. You want to make sure that you're putting the best football team together that you can, and I don't think you'd want to take a lesser player for a reason of fit, and fit can be that's a complicated word as well. There's players on our roster that have played really well, and you wouldn't say they're quote unquote a perfect fit for what we do. But I think you get into a really tough spot if you're just taking fit, because there's different ways to do it.
Kevin, you kind of along those lines. A lot of people have said you're going back to the Kevin Stefanski offense. When you hear that, what do you think? Is there a Kevin Stefanski offense?
There's a Cleveland Browns offense. It's never been about me. I think it's really important that we put a system together that fits our players, and that's what Tommy and the offensive staff are doing right now.
Kevin, I want to ask you, NFLPA, your players graded USC, which is passable, but it was 30th of 37 to coaches. What do you think? Are you disappointment? Do you wonder why? I got to see.
I think, like I said earlier, you're trying to get better at everything you do every year. I take that into account, that there's things that we'll look at from a best practices standpoint. Can we do better? But I trust in the players that we have. I trust in the leaders that we have. And I think for me, you got to always make sure that you're treating people with respect and treating people fairly.
Kevin,
evaluating these rookie quarterbacks, do you feel like there is one that can come in and start for you pretty soon and be your future?
I wouldn't go there right now, Mary Kay, just because I'm still in the middle of this process. I would tell you, it's the truth. I'm really impressed with this group of players from the tape, and then just getting to know them here. I'm really impressed.
Kevin, we have a record number of defensive line. Everybody took the comments. It seems like every year there's 3 or 4 freaks at the top of the draft.
Yes.
Why is that a position that is bearing so much fruit right now?
Well, I don't know if it's ever changed. Maybe as teams pass the ball more, that player became more important, just to harass the quarterback and You watched the Super Bowl this past season, how the Eagles were able to have that pass rush. So pressuring the quarterback is something that's always been really important to us, just as protecting the quarterback has been. So I do think this year is unique in the amount of guys that are really high-level players coming out. But that may be a reflection of how the game has changed, even going all the way back to high school and college. You're seeing more pass, you're seeing more pass rushers as a result.
Kevin, do you think you've seen enough of DeJuan Jones to know that he could be your starting left tackle?
Yeah, obviously the most important thing for DeJuan right now is getting healthy. With the surgeries, he's rehabbing, he's doing a nice job, he's there every single day, getting better. So that's the number one thing to do. And he's had some really good moments when he's out there. He's played on the right side, he's played on the left side, so we'll see when we get there, but I want to get him healthy first.
Kevin, one of your coaching fellows, Nemo Washington, he just got a great opportunity to become an offensive coordinator. How does that make you feel to, your staff can advance like that?
Yeah, it's really important for us to develop young coaches, and Nemo's a really good young coach, going to be doing it at a high level at Delaware State with Deshaun Jackson. He's going to be a head coach here pretty shortly, I would imagine, just with his pedigree and how he sees the game. So our Bill Willis Fellowship is a position that I'm really proud of, and I think it's the credit goes to Dee and Jimmy and what they've kind of outlined in our building in terms of giving people opportunities. So Nemo's a great example of that. Ashton Grant's a quarterback coach at New England Patriots. Israel Wolfork's a quarterback coach at the Arizona Cardinals. So just our program is working in that we're identifying the right people, and then we're trying to help them develop so that they can be future offense coordinators, future head coaches, whether it's in college or in the pros.
Kevin, have you had a chance, or have you talked to Myles Garrett since he made this trade?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into conversations with our guys, America.
It seems a week doesn't go by where the Sugar Sanders camp doesn't make a reference to the Browns or his favorite team playing on Madden. You'll be the first team he visits on the 30 visit. His dad and his relationship with Billy Musgrave and all. What do you make of all that? And his older brother is putting this on social media, so it's intending for everybody to see it.
I haven't seen it, so maybe I don't know if I'm the intended audience or not. But yeah, he's, like we said, I'm really impressed with the young man. The tape is really good. He made a ton of throws, made a ton of plays, off schedule, on schedule, you name it. Won football games, and then just to get to know him, I mean, he's an impressive young man.
Kevin, how has the way you viewed the quarterback position changed since you entered the league as a coach?
I don't know that my view has changed in that we know how important this position is. The way the game is played, the style with which that position is played has certainly changed. Offensive schemes have certainly changed, but the view of the position, how cerebral you must be, the leadership that goes into it, that hasn't changed very much.
Are you intrigued enough by some of the other quarterbacks besides the top two? I know you saw a lot of them up close and personal at the Senior Bowl. Are you intrigued enough to maybe come back and take another one in a later round?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get into that, but I would just go back, Mary Kay, to say this is a really good class from top all the way through. And I know you mentioned Cam and Shador, but there's really good players like throughout this draft at that position. I could go through some other positions, but I'm impressed with the whole group.
Why do they get such a bad rap then, this quarterback class?
I don't know. You'd have to. Who's repping them? Who can we ask that question to? I'm not sure. And I think that's what we do as people that as we consume the draft, and there's a lot to consume. I think there's always narratives that people are putting out, but I don't think those guys are very concerned with whatever that narrative may be.
One last question on Myles for me is he pretty much come out and said he wants to leave because he doesn't think they could win. So what does that do to his relationship in the locker room if he returns?
Yeah, the way I look at it, this league and how it's set up, we're coming off a playoff season a couple seasons ago where Myles was Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, we had a down year this season, which is extremely frustrating for Myles, our players, myself, our fans. But we look at it as 2025 is right in front of us, and we have a lot of work to do, certainly, but that's the exciting part about football.
So Kevin, when you talk about going 11-6 and then 3-14, do you have to kind of balance figuring out whether or not to make significant changes, whether it's to the off-season program or to how you practice? You know what I mean? I know you evaluate all that. Have you decided to make significant switches and that kind of thing?
I don't think yet we've made any final decisions, but every single year I'm trying to look at the best way to do things and what is working around the league. And then you're looking at your football team and trying to figure out what your team needs in a given season, because what we need is maybe not the same as what another team needs. So trying to make informed decisions, but a big part of what I do in the off season is understanding what other teams are doing from from everything, you name it, from a practice schedule, from a meeting schedule, how they travel, all those things. I'm looking at those to make sure that we're doing it the best way we can for our players.
Kevin, AB yesterday said you still don't know about JOK, but what's like the communication been like while he figures out if he can play again?
Yeah, with me, great. I mean, obviously, talked to him a few different times, and we'll just continue to take it slow, and we'll make sure we're there when we get all the information we need.
To your point about how the position has changed, quarterback position, how has the definition evolved of what it means to hold the ball too long?
Well, heard a stat yesterday that quarterbacks are holding the ball longer than they ever have. Now, is that just because off of drop back, the protection is better? Probably not, right? I mean, it has more to do probably with players playing off schedule and scrambling and buying time. So I think the thing maybe that's, and alludes a little bit to Daniel's question earlier, as decision makers, what's evolved is you always thought about those decision makers, those quote unquote game managers. That always meant they were in the pocket making those decisions. You're still managing the game if you're outside the pocket. So I think the ability to make great decisions, the ability to quote unquote manage the game happens whether it's from the pocket or on a scramble or you name it.
Kevin, you used a lot of multiple tight ends early in the career. Last year, maybe not as much. Is that something you want to get back to have that versatility? Run looks like a pass looks like a run?
Potentially. I think it's important for us, again, to look at the players available in that department to see who we think fits what we do, but that's certainly something we've talked about.
Do you anticipate having Deshaun Watson around the team, rehabbing with the team, in the meeting rooms and all those kinds of things?
Yes, he's there every day right now. I get to see him, so he's working very hard. Obviously, the number one thing for him is to get healthy.
So he's been primarily rehabbing out of Cleveland?
Yes. Yep.
And what is his mindset like? What is he thinking about his own future?
Yeah, I think he's taking it day to day like all of us do in life. I think, again, the most important thing, he had a very unfortunate injury, re-injury with having surgery again. So the number one thing is for him to get healthy.
Kevin, with obviously Jerry emerged last year, around him, what does an ideal wide receiver room look like?
Yeah, I think depends. I don't think you say just Jerry has this skill set, we need that. I think kind of goes back to we'll take good players and it's our job to figure out how to utilize them. Obviously, Jerry had a big year for us. I think he can play better. I know there's things that Jerry can do better, and he knows that, and I think he wants to be a big contributor. Now, how we deploy him, who's around him, that remains to be seen.
Kevin,
Just a couple more.
This idea that running backs are back now. I know you've always been a proponent of running the ball. So from your perspective, why is it all of a sudden a novel idea to run the ball?
Well, I think Saquon had an amazing individual season, so that's probably the simplest answer. Just the impact that he made in that for that team, and so. But it's always been an important position. We all know that. I've been around some great ones, and then as we go back to that question about the market of football. I mean, there's people view the positions differently, but obviously, I think that's always been an important position. Good. Okay. Thanks guys.